having a six-pack is like more rare than being a millionaire these days. Having good health is very rare, and if that's important to you and you want your partner to have that as well, I think it should be accepted. So the principles of longevity protocols are all the same, but it's like in the details and the nuance how you implement those.
Kayla Barnes-Lentz is an entrepreneur and a leading voice in female longevity. She shares her journey on optimizing her health as a woman, fertility, reducing the burden of toxins in the modern world, and using different biohacking technologies. She also has a longevity clinic in Ohio. One of the very interesting things that people might know about you is that you did like a health interview for your husband when you started dating with him. So can you maybe explain a little bit, how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, it's become a bit controversial, I will say. Like, I've read some of the comments and people say, oh my gosh, this is the most unromantic thing I've ever heard
Right.
of in my life. But it wasn't really like that. So, I mean, this has been, my world for the last 6 years. I have a clinic. So for me, and you and I chatted about this on my podcast, it's so important to find a partner that aligns with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
it'd be very difficult to be pursuing longevity and health optimization if I had a husband that wanted to like sit on the couch and drink like beer and eat chips at the end of the night,
Yeah.
it would not be a match. So
Yeah, exactly. Like it wouldn't work out anyway. So it's better to come out clear with what our like values and priorities are with health.
100%, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's more acceptable in other areas, right? Like if a man works a lot, he's going to continue working a lot and show that to his future spouse, right? Like, hey, this is what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I thought of it. It was one of the most important things to me, like there were other things like faith is super important and morals but health is huge. So I asked him if he had labs of his own, because that would kind of indicate whether or not he even cared about his health. Well, first I did like a little Instagram scroll and I checked out like what's going on here. There's like working out pictures. I'm like, that's good. He's like getting like grass-fed, grass-finished meats at Erewhon. I'm like, okay, that's good. So I figured he'd be open to it, and he was. So he immediately sent me like his full physical. Things looked pretty good. But then I was like, hey, can I send you a bunch of other labs? Are you down to take them? So I sent him so much. I sent him a genetics test, a gut test, total toxic burden test. And he took them immediately, sent them back, and we reviewed them together. They were pretty good. I mean, there were some areas that we were able to optimize. That was really fun, actually, because I think for him, once I helped him get his so when we first met, he was on a little bit of testosterone, like tiny, the smallest dosage. But because we want to have babies, I was like, hey, do you mind to get off of that? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And so we took his testosterone from about like 600 or so up to like 916 naturally.
Wow.
So he was like all in after that. He's like, oh, definitely, let's do it. So yeah, the lab thing has been controversial, but you know what? I think this should be like the future, to be honest with you. Good health, I've read that having a six-pack is like more rare than being a millionaire these days, So having good health is very rare. And if that's important to you and you want your partner to have that as well, I think it should be accepted, to be honest.
Yeah, I think, that it applies to a lot of other areas. Of course, you have people with different lifestyles also being together, but usually people with the same music get together, music taste get together, people with same health habits get together. So there should be like a filter on some dating apps. Yeah, I think there are like some dating apps actually where it's around health, so you can check. I think, or at least there should be some like option on dating apps that check health, be healthy or something like that, value health.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, on that note, do you know this Instagram account, Carnivore Aurelius?
Yeah.
So we ended up, my husband was apparently like going to Carnivore Aurelius Instagram and cause he was intentionally trying to find a wife. He wanted a wife for like a long time, but he just had a really long list of things that he wanted that person to have. So he would go and write a comment and see. So Carnivore Aurelius kind of has a dating app. We kind of met through that as well. Cause we were both connected to him, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, that's interesting. But what got you into, what made you want to be healthy yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a slow build. I didn't grow up healthy at all, like just ate standard American diet. Like my mom was giving me like Pop-Tarts, like things that I don't even see as food now. So when I started studying nutrition in college, it was just like a little bit, I was like, oh, let me just change how I'm eating. But the real desire was that I didn't really come from a lot. And I knew that in order to build a life like that I wanted, I was going to have to work a lot, truly. So I became an entrepreneur at the age of like 17 years old. I've always had my own company. And I knew that I was going to have to feel amazing and like upgrade my biology per se
Mhm.
to be able to work as much as I wanted to work to build the life that I wanted, which I now have, which is exciting. So that was the first thing. I was just like, let's change how I'm eating a little bit. And then I started to feel better. I got super deep into it about 5 years ago when I went to go open up a clinic. So I have a longevity medicine clinic. And when I was thinking about what to offer, I started looking at all these labs that my doctor had never recommended before. So I had never seen a gut test. My doctor never told me to look at like the amount of parabens or
Mm.
phthalates or environmental toxins. And my health was like great according to my doctors, right? So, but as soon as I started getting some of these labs back, I'm like, oh, I think this can be better. So it was just, yeah, it was a build. And I have a very type A personality. I really started to love the fact that you could feel better like as you got older, you
Mm.
know? I'm 34 now, and I feel better now than when I was like 18 years old. So I'm
Yeah.
like, this is amazing. And then I just started to get so educated on the subject, right? So as you build these medical clinics, you talk to all these doctors and, practitioners. And I'm like, what are you doing that's working? And then we started implementing a lot of that. And then I got this great clinical experience, which was so fun because you get to see people's lives change. You get to, because I would say about 50% of the patients that live are wanting to improve lifespan or health span. But the other 50% have like some chronic illness. They've been to
Mm.
10, 15, 20 doctors and they can't figure out why they feel horrible.
Mm.
And so those people, you get to put them through these interventions and protocols, and then you see their life change. That's like the most rewarding thing. So
Yeah.
I got excited about all these different therapies and the ability to improve health now, but also for the future.
Mm. Yeah, because sometimes people don't care about their health, but if they get sick, they start to care. So
Hmm.
it's like, you will care eventually.
Yeah.
And at that point when you are forced to care about your health, that's the only thing you want. Like you would, give away anything just to be healthy.
Yeah, your entire focus
Mm.
just goes to that. And it's so sad because people unfortunately like treat their body like a garbage can, for so long. They're like, "Oh, nothing's happening. It's fine." But it's accumulating and eventually it's just going to tip over and then you're going to have
Yeah.
some sort of chronic disease. So I love the work that you're doing. That's the work I'm trying to do is just say, take care of yourself now when it's easier, when
Mm.
you're younger, and when you haven't developed any chronic disease, because it's going to be so much more difficult to reverse that later.
Yeah. So on your podcast, we talked about my grandfather who died to cancer. Do you have any like family history of any chronic diseases, or is there something that you're genetically worried about?
Actually, no. So my great grandmother is 95
Okay.
and she is still living on her own
Wow.
and she is still, yeah, just, I mean, enjoying life. So there wasn't anything major. My parents also had me really young. So my mom was like 18. My mom was just out here.
Hmm.
No one could believe that she was my mom. Everyone was just like, oh, who's your friend? And I'm like, no, this is my mom. So that's good. I didn't have anything like that, but I just, knew that I could feel better. And I knew that, like, at one point I was working, 80-hour weeks, like
Mm.
for many years in a row. And you can't do that if you're not optimized. If you are not eating the right foods and getting high quality sleep, and it's much more difficult to do that. And I just
Yeah.
knew I was going to have to because I wanted a life that was so beautiful, but I just knew I would have to put in a lot of work to get
Mm.
there. So, no, not particularly, but it was kind of like my own pursuits, like
Yeah.
wanting to see how good can I get so I can achieve all these things.
Yeah. Well, if you have a grandma who's so old, you have a very high likelihood of living to 100 as well, because the research is something like if your mother or grandmother or someone who lived to 100 become a centenarian, then the offspring's likelihood of is also like 100% higher than the general
Mm,
population or something like that. So yeah,
I love that.
genes
And
genes are great.
I mean, yeah, and by no means is she doing anything
Mm.
like health related.
Yeah. Before I continue on, I'll briefly mention to you about one of my favorite longevity gadgets, which is the Bond Charge infrared sauna blanket. It's a cheaper and more convenient way to take the sauna anywhere at any time. I've talked a lot about the benefits of regular sauna use. I believe taking the sauna regularly is the second best thing for your longevity after exercise. In fact, the sauna mimics a lot of the health benefits of exercise. The sauna is also effective for excreting heavy metals and other chemicals we're exposed to on a daily basis. It's got a rating of 4.9 out of 5 based on 176 reviews, which is crazy. But I'm not surprised because I'm using the blanket almost every day and it gets the same job done as a regular sauna. Plus, it's easy to clean. and you can store it under your bed. All right, back to the video. You're also like very vocal about like male and female health. So there's like a lot of differences that there are between men and women. So maybe you can elaborate. Like, what are some of like the biggest things that people miss when we're talking about health advice for men and women?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started all this, the medical literature is essentially for men, right? So
Mm.
women weren't required to be included in research until like the 1990s, so that's like as old as I am, just and
Right.
about you too, probably close. So that hasn't been a very long time. So all these like longevity protocols and a lot of the research is done on men. So then that information is extrapolated for men. So I was doing a lot of these longevity protocols. Like let's use caloric restriction as one.
Hmm.
We know that that's one of the best interventions for life extension, right? So I believe, was it a 20 to 30% caloric restriction yielded a 20 to 30% longer lifespan, right?
Yeah.
So I was doing all these things. I was implementing the caloric restriction from the research. I was implementing intermittent fasting, with that. Then I was implementing all the exercise regimes. And at the end of the day, I was watching my biomarkers like my thyroid and my hormones trend in the wrong direction. So my
Mm.
thyroid was dropping, my hormones were becoming dysregulated. So I really started to, pull the cover back and say, okay, why is this? I'm doing all of the right things, but for some reason my biomarkers are trending in the wrong direction. And I really kind of just put it together. Let's reel it in a little bit. And so I found differences in every single area. So let's, sleep. We know sleep is like the foundation of health, right? So in the literature, it says that women need about 11 to 20 minutes more sleep than men, which
Okay.
is interesting.
Mm.
What I have found, just like N in one study, so I've been blessed enough to be able to go to bed at the same time and wake up with no alarm clock. I have found, especially during specific phases, so like late luteal or early follicular, that's, the bleed phase for women, that I need even about an hour more sleep than
Mm.
my husband.
Wow.
And if we think about first principles, because there's not a lot of medical research, so that's what this whole thing that I'm doing is, right? It's
Mm.
first principles thinking about some of these really under researched topics like ovarian aging. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
in a second. But so women detox slightly slower than men
Mm.
because we prioritize fat storage and we have more body fat in general than men. So we detox a little slower. That could be a reason that we need more sleep to detox. And then we're also exposed to more toxins. So it's estimated that we leave the house with about double the amount of toxins that men do in the form of personal care products and fragrances and makeups, all these different
Yeah.
lotions and stuff that we're putting on and different products. So that could be one reason because we don't really know exactly why women need more sleep than men, but that's one big difference. So if you're just listening to this, you're like, I'm going to do a super strict longevity protocol, then being a part of the 5 a.m. boys club might not work for you as a woman,
Right.
because we do need more sleep. So that's something that
Mm.
was an interesting finding.
Yeah. And more stress or more of these even if they're considered positive stressors, like too much of anything is also bad for men. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of men as well who do the 5 a.m. and 3 hours exercise every day and calorie restriction, etc. And, their health is also not in the best shape. At least their hormones would probably be like quite suboptimal if they were to be natural. Like
Right.
it's very unlikely for men to even maintain normal hormone levels with a very stressful and highly physically active lifestyle, not to mention women. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Because, um, women are more sensitive. So
Mm.
let's say, you and your wife or me and my husband are both getting into a cold plunge. And let's say, you can do fine at 35 degrees Fahrenheit. And then she gets in, she's going to have a higher cortisol spike faster than
Mm.
you are. So that's another difference, right? Is these hormetic stressors, which we know and love for improving resilience and increasing our capacity to handle stress. Women just need to think about it a little differently. So the principles of longevity protocols are all the same,
Mm.
but it's like in the details and the nuance, how you
Yeah.
implement those can be either amazing and help you optimize health span and energy and fertility. Fertility is a huge issue right now
Mm.
on both sides of the coin, right? It's
Yeah.
50% from the man, 50% from the woman. But hormetic stressors is another one. So I was doing a lot of cold therapy all the time,
Mm.
all throughout my cycle. So I was like doing caloric restriction and intermittent fasting and trying to be like waking up super early. And I was also doing all these hormetic stressors and it was just way, way, way too much.
Mhm.
So what I have found now, I've kind of optimized my cold therapy protocol. And so I'm doing all of my cold therapy in the first half of my cycle. So this is
Mhm.
like day 1 through about day 14. brain because we have all this estrogen. And so we can take advantage of that as women and we can do our hardest. That's when I'm hitting like all my PRs.
Mm.
I'm really doing most of my HIIT training because we know like HIIT training is so good for the mitochondria. And fun fact, but women, the highest density of mitochondria is like in the heart, brain, but women also have a massive mitochondrial density in the ovaries,
Mm.
specifically in these oocytes. So I'm
Yeah.
always thinking about mitochondrial optimization for that and for fertility also. So that was another big change, is changing and reducing the hormetic stressors, timing, duration, and temperature. So I'm keeping my cold plunge. I have a cold plunge up there that we walk past at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit instead of
Mm.
those super cold temperatures
Right.
because I'm getting the same benefit as my husband, but I can do less time and I can do warmer
Yeah.
temperatures. So those are a few of the nuances. And then even when it comes to nutrition, being able to optimize your nutrition for your cycle. So we're mostly talking about women that are the age of like your wife and me. So this is like of childbearing years, maybe perimenopause. When you get into menopause, it changes a bit because your hormones are really very stable and they're very
Mm.
low. But for someone in their childbearing years that is menstruating, you can even optimize your nutrition to your cycle because men, it's kind of like Groundhog Day. It's like you guys have this 24-hour cycle of hormones, which is great. But we have to think through everything in like days 1 through 14, then
Yeah.
14 through 16, and then 16 through the end. So I'm eating like a little bit more grass-fed, grass-finished red meat in that first week because you're losing iron. So you can supplement with that. We know that women are more insulin sensitive in the first half of the cycle. So during
Mm.
that follicular phase. So that is something to know because you want to take advantage of that. You're a little bit
Right.
less insulin sensitive in the second half of the cycle. So
Mm.
managing blood sugar throughout that cycle can also be really helpful. So those have been like a few of the differences. And I would say one of the last differences that's really important to know is this total toxic burden thing. I'm
Mm.
really obsessed with this right now because women are exposed to so many more environmental toxins. So I think
Yeah.
if women can start to reduce their total toxic burden, either, you don't have to test if you don't want to spend the money on the test, but just starting to swap out products. There's a resource called the Environmental Working Group.
Mm.
Great resource. They have something called the Skin Deep database. You could just type in the product that you're using right now. It'll give you a score. You want to stay in the green zone of toxicity, and you can just start swapping out, products for less toxic products. I mean, here in the US for sure, regulations are very wide. There's not much regulation at all on what
Mm.
goes in the food or what goes on your skin. But when you're thinking about your skin, it's essentially like a mouth, it's
Mm.
being absorbed transdermally.
Yeah.
That's why we even need to shower or filter our shower water here. So trying to reduce that toxic burden for women, I think is going to be really helpful overall to hormone health. Like a lot of women have these PMS symptoms and these hormonal imbalances. And I think if you can optimize your hormones, you're going to really just
Yeah.
feel so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. For men, most men, it's just the 3-in-1 shower gel
Right.
that they're exposed to. But yeah, women have a lot
Three in
more.
one.
Yeah, the shampoo, the shower gel, and the conditioner all at once. But yeah, it's like a small amount compared to women who are using different personal care products and makeup and things like that. So yeah,
Yeah, and
it's a
even
lot
like
higher.
cleaning products, so, women are traditionally exposed to more of them. I know that
Mm.
these roles are changing a bit, I suppose. I don't know. My husband doesn't touch cleaning products, so I mean, yeah, I think it's just the accumulation, and we're
Yeah.
living in an environment, as you know, and we were even talking about the differences of like where you live in Estonia versus like living here in LA. It's vastly different. It's
Yeah,
the air pollution is really something to be. So it depends on where you're at in the
for
world,
sure.
but if you're here in the U.S., we know that there's just all sorts of these known carcinogen and endocrine disrupting chemicals like these microplastics that we now know are in the brain, in
Mm.
the ovaries, in the placenta of
Yeah.
babies. Those mimic estrogen. So we see young girls starting to menstruate earlier ever than ever. We see women entering menopause earlier than ever. So these are things we really need to be thinking about, these like estrogen mimicking substances.
Yeah. So you're planning to get a baby with your husband
Yeah.
eventually. Uh, how do you like prepare for that? Like because yeah, like you said, there's a lot of these toxins and microplastics that have been found to be transmitted from the mother to the baby as well. So how are you like preparing yourself? You and your husband, how are you preparing to get like the healthiest with the least microplastics.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I know. It's a whole thing. So, I mean, I want to preface that, this is what I do
Mm,
professionally, like for my job. So I don't think everyone needs to do all of this. But
right.
for me, I'm trying to optimize every lab. So of course, just like basic blood work, we want like our lipids to look good, our inflammation to be really low, our, insulin and glucose and all of our just basic blood work we want to optimize. But then I want to look at like nutrient status. So I do something called a Nutri eval. So instead of just guessing like what supplements I should take, I literally draw labs and I look at all these nutrient statuses because we know that once you get pregnant, the baby is just going to draw so many of those nutrients from you. So
Mm,
actually, all throughout the pregnancy, I'm excited because I don't think this has ever been done. I'm going to do an obscene amount of labs, probably every few weeks, like 2 to 3 weeks during pregnancy to see what's going on because we
mm,
don't even know, which is crazy. It's 2025. We really have no clue what's going on in a woman's body during
mm,
pregnancy. So I'm optimizing the Nutri eval, which is the nutrient status test, really optimizing the total tox burn test. So getting those down as low as possible because we also know that higher levels of environmental toxins decrease a lab value called AMH or anti-Müllerian hormone. This
mhm,
is a measurement of your egg reserve as a woman. So it's not a perfect measurement and there is no exact measurement to test fertility until you try to get pregnant. It's like
right.
do you or don't you? But I have gotten all the labs to just see where things are. And I think all women should know their AMH because if it's really low and you're young, that might mean that you either need to do a complete 180 on lifestyle, but you also might want to freeze your eggs. You might want to start trying to get pregnant. Are you familiar with this lab? I don't
I've heard about it.
the
Yeah.
AMH. So that's a good one just to have an idea of. But going back to what I'm doing for pregnancy, optimizing gut health, we know that like the mother's microbiome is going to be
Mm,
passed down to the child. So I do a test called the GI effects by Genova, just trying to get that as top tier as possible. Um, Definitely taking like a male and female. Prenatal. So we take something called a wee needle. They have a women's version and a
mm,
men's version, which is really nice, loaded with like antioxidants and methylated folate and some of these key nutrients that we need. It's great to know, but there's a 3-month window
mm,
for both men and women that you can optimize to as much as possible. So women can optimize their egg quality, men can optimize their sperm quality. So my husband's doing all this stuff too. So we're looking at his total toxic burden, we're looking at his gut tests, his blood
mm,
biomarkers to also help him detox. We're doing a lot of sauna, so at least minimum 4 sauna sessions. Since the fires in LA, I'm
mm,
doing sauna every day now. So really helping to just excrete those toxins, doing a lot of binders. This is really extreme, and I'm only doing it because of the toxins, but I did therapeutic plasma exchange, doing EBU to reduce that toxic
mm,
burden. But just having an idea of where your toxin levels are, it looks at BPA. I've done the
yeah.
microplastic test too. So just reducing microplastics in all ways. So of course, using glass, not drinking out of plastic, no plastic, little cups, and then heating it up in coffee. That's like one of the worst, just dispersing microplastics everywhere. Same thing with tea bags. I mean,
Mm,
that's like a lesser known, but really important. Those plastic tea bags, people are putting it into hot water, drinking green tea, thinking it's amazing for them. And then they're just drinking like, millions of
billions. Yeah.
microplastics. Um, Clothing even I'm really trying to move my clothing to be natural fibers, organic, and just like 100% cotton because a lot of these workout outfits for women,
Mm,
the polyester, spandex, they're actually have a ton of microplastics in them. And then
yeah.
when you sweat, they're actually able to like seep in transdermally and a lot of the chemicals. So just working out in some basic like 100% cotton outfits instead of
Mm,
those like super cute workout outfits. That's something really leaning into optimal nutrition. So I tend to eat similar to you, like a Mediterranean style diet. I do eat red meat. Always just, I think quality is everything and
mm,
focusing on single ingredient foods,
yeah.
like one ingredient, kale, avocado, healthy fats are amazing. We know that eggs, increasing your choline is better for baby's brain development. So I
Yeah.
have eggs. I eat fermented foods, which are great for gut health. Love things like pomegranates because they're loaded with urolithin A.
Mm,
A lot of the supplements that we know to be good for longevity, I do try to get in the food forms like
yeah.
urolithin A and like natto. I mean, it tastes horrible, but like
Mhm.
you get a lot, a high dosage. Love taking the pomegranates, things like bone broth, which are really great for sealing the gut and improving gut health pre baby. Um, I mean, even organ meats or like an organ meat supplement of some kind. I mean, again, tastes horrible, but really good, like nutritional powerhouse, just
Yeah.
in one small dosage. So optimizing sleep, women experience stress at much higher levels. So that doesn't mean we
Mm.
have more stress, but the way that we perceive it, our
Mm.
stress levels are higher. It's crazy because I look at my husband's aura ring and I look at mine. He's a CEO. He wakes up super early, works so hard. He's building a business, but somehow he's in restored like all day on
Mm.
aura ring. Not me at all. Like I have way less stress than him actually. But for some as a woman, I think it's just we were built like that because we were built to have children, right?
Right.
So our senses are heightened all the time because we were meant to like hear the baby crying or, watch out for something. We're just built differently. So
Yeah.
our baseline stress is higher. And we know that like 80% of doctor visits are related to stress. So, really trying to intentionally reduce stress
Mm.
pre baby or trying to be the most fertile. So, for me, I've also
Yeah.
like wound in, as mentioned, these cold therapy practices and stuff in the luteal phase and trying to focus on stress reduction, I think is huge.
Mm.
One really cool thing that I've found Hyperbaric does is that as soon as the chamber is pressurized, my stress levels on aura go from being stressed to being in restored
Mm.
immediately and they
Wow.
stay there. So
Yeah.
that's a really cool thing. But I think women should intentionally build in stress reduction. So I have 4 to 5 times per day on my calendar, starting in the morning, that I'm doing breath work. I have a little device called a Moonbird, and it
Mhm.
really helps you like slow down your breath and breathe super deep. And then I can see myself transition into parasympathetic. So I think that parasympathetic activation for women is so important because
Mm.
we also know women are experiencing, 80% of the autoimmune conditions. We live on average 4 to 6 years longer than men, but we also experience a lot more and longer chronic
Right.
disease. So, yeah, those are some of the things I'm doing
Mm.
for fertility optimization, and my husband's doing a lot of it too. I mean, leaning into exercise. We know that being sedentary is
Mm.
is a negative for fertility. We know that having a high BMI is a
Yeah.
negative for fertility. So, of course, those things, focusing on high quality sleep, will help with some of that stress reduction too, and just balancing your hormones.
Mm. So you say like a 3-month period before conception, you want to be like a super clean
Like
lifestyle.
best ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can actually make a big impact in that
Mm.
3 months. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think people should not be discouraged if, you really want to be in peak health. If you just start now in 3 months, you have this time to really like make a difference in your egg
Mm.
quality and sperm quality.
Yeah. Many people don't think about it. Like they don't think that your current state of health, how it influences the child, even though you might be healthy later, but during the conception stage, you need to be in like pretty good health if you want to make the child also like the healthiest. There's like after Chernobyl, there was like a lot of women who
Mm,
were afraid of getting pregnant, and they didn't because of the fear of radiation,
yeah.
which will have some effects
Yeah.
on the child.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder
Yeah.
if is there a lot of research around Chernobyl and what happened there?
Well, I remember reading a few studies where there was a lot of abortions after Chernobyl because
Oh.
the women were afraid of some risk for the child, but apparently it's not like that big an effect that it would like significantly increase the risk of some mutations or something. So yeah, unless you were very close to it, like if you were in Sweden during the explosion, then you probably didn't have any significant risk. So
Yeah.
yeah, the exposure and how far are you away from it has a much more important role.
Yeah.
And the same with the environmental pollutants, like the LA fires probably will have a bigger effect now since it's been recent. So there's a lot
Mhm.
more of these pollutants in the air than 6 months ago.
Yeah. Well, I looked into a little bit, like I was just trying to understand what happened around 9/11.
Mm.
So there was two buildings and there are about 130,000 people from what I found enrolled in like a government supported health program because of it's of course the initial issues and the initial exposure, but my concern and why we're leaving LA is that I think as they go to clean it all up over the
Mm.
course of the next 2 years, it's going to keep being reintroduced into the
Right.
into the air,
Yeah.
and they're really harmful things that are linked to things like birth defects and infertility and cancer. And so, I mean, for me, and I know that this is coming from a massive place of like privilege. I'm leaving, but if I weren't leaving LA, I would definitely do everything I could to detox as often as
Mm.
possible.
Yeah, gotcha. Um, what about like for men? Like, is there a way to enhance like because there's declining birth rates for many reasons. People choose to have less children, but there's also like declining fertility because of the modern
Mhm.
lifestyle. Other like way like what do you think is the biggest reasons why the your birth rates are declining, and are there some things that people can do to like support their fertility?
Yeah, of course. I mean, well, I think the biggest number to think about is like the fact that fertility on and of itself, not even just the birth rates, has declined about 30% in the last 30 years. So it's
Mm,
going down about 1% each year, which doesn't sound like a lot per year, but it's compounding, right? So when we get to 50 years, we'll be 50%. So yeah, it's certainly 50% for the men, 50% of the women. So it's both sexes need to be optimized, right? And I think for sure, I mean, it's so many things, right? Like sedentary behavior constantly. I mean, we know that 60% of Americans have one chronic disease, 40% of Americans have two chronic diseases.
mm,
This is absolutely insane, right? So, trying to get in the healthiest state ever, lower BMI, exercise, improving hormones in general, I think is helpful, and also reducing the amount of environmental toxins. So, both of these things really apply to both sexes. Gut health optimization, really important for both sexes. And also nutrient status, optimization, I think can be helpful for both sexes. And it's great because if you're married, like, for me, I make all the meals. So like I look at my husband labs and then I make all the meals and then I prepare the supplements. So like he doesn't really have to do much different,
mm,
he's just like kind of following the protocol. But I think, yeah, definitely just maintaining a super healthy lifestyle is going to be so helpful. Sleep too for men, really all the same things. And then probably supplementation for men too. So I love,
mm,
you can do like a one-stop shop, like a prenatal for men, which is like a very common thing now. I think it used to not be, but now it's quite common. So
mm.
I find that to be really helpful as well.
You mentioned your husband was on small testosterone before,
Yeah.
so that reduces sperm count, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you're on testosterone and you want to have children, I mean, I would be really careful. There are other options that you could consider, something maybe like enclomiphene for a short dose. But yeah, testosterone, it essentially turns off the signaling
mm,
mechanisms to the testes to produce these sperm. So, and
right.
and some people on testosterone, not to be like fear mongering or anything, it's very bio individual. But if you're on it for a super long time, you just want to be conscious if you want to have children in the future. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, right away I asked him to cease that, and thankfully he did.
How many kids do you want?
We want a lot, so I would like to have like 5 or 6
Mm,
kids.
well,
So my husband was one of 6. He was all him and all the siblings were homeschooled. I was one of 5, so we both had big families, and yeah, we want to have. I didn't ask you that question. How many kids do you want?
um, well, yeah. I mean, we were thinking of two would be like definitely what we want. Maybe three, four. So depends. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that women who are able to have children later in life, they live
Mhm.
longer. So, like, if they can
Yeah,
have it in 40s, a child, then that's a good sign of good health. So,
yeah.
yeah, maybe we'll have more. So who knows?
I mean, hey, for me, it's like, why not? Why not have
Mm,
a bunch of like little amazing kids running around? It's gonna be so
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, and for men especially, like I think I saw some study on Amish people that for men the lowest mortality was something like 14 children,
Oh my gosh.
and for the woman it was something like 6 was the lowest.
Wow.
So,
I mean, yeah, people have been having babies,
mm,
forever, and it's really sad that we're in this place that people are struggling so hard to get
mm,
pregnant. Some of it has to do with age in general, because the age of first baby is just getting pushed out. Obviously, it was like late teens at some point, like
yeah.
19, 20 years old, mid 20s. But now we're having babies older, so that means we have to take even better care of ourselves.
Mm. Yeah, there's a lot some fear that if you're past 35 or something, then you shouldn't have kids anymore because it's too late for
Yeah,
for the
no.
woman. But which if you look at the studies, yeah, like women who have children in their 40s, they are able to live longer. So
Yeah, but I do think it's a big correlation that they're already healthier,
yeah,
right?
well, that's
So,
the
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
point. Yeah, like if you are able to do it, then you're healthy.
Mhm.
You have
Yeah.
healthy body. One interesting thing, yeah, like we touched already, is like the pollutants and microplastics and those kind of things, do you have any like specific protocol you follow, and like what kind of tests you do to
Yeah.
like remove them? Because they're everywhere, and they've become quite like worrisome in the sense you find them that in higher amounts of microplastic in the arteries increases risk of heart disease or
Mhm.
heart attacks. So
Yeah, they're like accumulating in the brain at
yeah.
2x the speed. It's wild. In terms of testing, I do the total toxic burden test. I've also done, there's another microplastic only test. Do you know the one that I'm talking about? I'll send you the link. Um, I
Hmm.
forgot the name of the company, but that'll just show you if you have microplastics, right? I mean, everybody has some form of microplastics. I think when I think about this, it's obviously, I actually interviewed Dr. David Furman. Do you know who he is?
Hmm.
From the Buck Institute. And he thinks that microplastics is like the biggest threat to humanity after like a world war.
Hmm.
So really important topic here.
Yeah.
Um, so what do I do? First is like reducing it, microplastic. So what do I do for that? Definitely no tap water. Tap water is one of the biggest sources of microplastic exposure.
Mm.
So filtering, preferably with like a reverse osmosis, that's what's really going to get the microplastics out. Then you have to remineralize it though, because it strips out everything, including the minerals. So I put minerals back in. Salt is actually a huge source of
Mm.
microplastics because it's
Yeah.
sitting in the bottom of the ocean collecting. So I
Yeah.
have like my husband was laughing last night. He's like, "You have 4 different types of microplastic free salt in there." So microplastic free salt is a big one. Um, just simply never having plastic. It's hard though, because even if
Mm.
you order from a grocery store, like things are in plastic. So
Wrapped.
ideal life for me is going to be always going to the farmer's market, never using a plastic bag, but it's so hard. So
Yeah.
reducing your exposure as much as humanly possible. I also have a microplastic filter on my dryer, so it actually collects the microplastics from clothing, so that
Mm.
that can be helpful. Um, Let me think. Of course, just like steel, anything that you're cooking with, never using plastic. I searched for this
Teflon.
coffee. Yeah, I mean, I found the best brand over here after like trial and error. 100% pure ceramic. It's called Extrema.
Mm.
So I really like that one. And I like cast iron too, because a lot of these brands, they just put a ceramic coating on it. And then
Yeah.
once that coating, you get through it, then you get like exposure to these harmful, uh, you know, chemicals. Same thing with even cutting boards. So in the
Mm.
kitchen, doing like a wood or some sort of stone cutting board can be really helpful for the kitchen to reduce your microplastic exposure. We mentioned clothing, swapping out that. And then in terms of detoxification, I mean, I love a lot of fiber and like cruciferous vegetables. Sulforaphane is great for
Mm.
that. So I do sulforaphane supplementation, a lot of like broccoli, cauliflower. Not only is it good for just like keeping things regular and fiber requirements, but it's good for detoxing. Eating a lot of antioxidants is super important for
Mm.
getting rid of some of these microplastics. Sauna is really, really great. So doing sauna is amazing, right? Like the risk of, I
Yeah.
believe it's a 66% reduction in dementia
Mm.
with 4 sauna sessions or more per week.
Yeah.
You have a massive risk in all cause mortality and cardiovascular events. So doing that, super important. This is like way let's just work from like basic to like up to
Mm.
more extreme.
Yeah.
So reducing exposures in all ways, definitely do that immediately. Never drink these like soft plastic water bottles, and then people like put them in the car and then they're in heat. It's a total
Mm.
disaster. So just stop doing that and always be a nerd, like have a little water bottle that you bring
Unless
everywhere.
you're in the Sahara Desert and looking for water, and
Yeah,
then
okay,
maybe then.
then maybe. But it's like so funny. Like most women carry around like a handbag. I
Mm.
just show up everywhere with a glass bottle of water. Like
Right.
everyone's like, you just bring this everywhere, and I do. That's super helpful. And then, so we talked about some detox modalities, the sauna. I mean, exercise, just moving your body, sweating. We were meant to sweat. I don't think that we do that nearly enough now because we're
Mm.
way too sedentary. But sweating is a mechanism to excrete these things. Obviously, regular bowel movements are a way to excrete toxins. A few more advanced things that, I'm doing because we actually don't know how to get the microplastics out of the tissues once
Mm.
they've actually embedded. So, our best bet
Yeah.
right now is to get them before they've been embedded
From the
into the
blood.
tissues. Yeah, when they're in the blood. So things like, EBU can be helpful. Plasmapheresis can be really helpful. You could also, I don't know the exact percentage of efficacy, but some people donate plasma and
Mm.
donate blood, right? So you can do these things that are free.
That's a low
Sometimes you
cost.
even
Yeah.
get paid for them.
Yeah.
So that is something, because we of course know TPE is like very expensive right now. But those are a few things I think get them out of the blood in addition to all of the other
Mm.
practices. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything else you're doing?
Um, so I mean, yeah, like there's best way to like to get them out of the blood. So like blood donation, taking the blood out, filtering it like, with the TB and those kind of things. I think they're the most effective probably.
Mhm.
Uh, there's also things like this IV with UV light or something like that. You do the light is shot into your
Mhm.
veins. So like there's some research that the UV light also breaks down some of these microplastics, but it doesn't take it out.
Yeah.
So the EBO would be probably like a better version because you take out
Mhm. It
and
goes through a little
yeah,
filter. Yeah.
filter, and then you also shoot the UV light in there,
Mhm.
ozonated, so and then get back in. So that's a more efficacious approach, I would imagine. But there's no studies on that yet. But theoretically, like the TP is probably like the most effective, or blood donation.
Mhm.
Blood donation is like a lower barrier to entry. You get paid or it's free. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're giving it to someone else
I know.
who is in dire need of it if they need a blood donation. But it's still it's better than nothing.
Yeah, so I think that's where we're at. I think a lot of companies, tech companies, are like pursuing this, right? Because it's
Mm,
like a massive issue for human health.
yeah.
How do we get rid of these, get them out of tissues? And I can't really think of a good way, even just first principles thinking. Like, how do you get them out of tissues without going inside the body? I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know, HBOT or something, because oxygen, because environmental plastics degrade with oxygen
Yeah,
and
that could
sunlight.
be.
So maybe there's something there, but
It's just like, how long is it going to
mm,
take for them to degrade? You
yeah. Yeah, the best thing is to just to get them out of blood regularly.
And reduce your exposure like as much as be like think about I'm thinking about it all the time, right?
Mm,
Which might seem like a little neurotic, but like once you get yourself set up, it's not so much like stress. Like once you have eliminated plastics, you have your
hmm.
little water bottle and all your things, then you don't
Yeah.
have to think about it so much.
Yeah, it's hard in the beginning when you're kind of used to the
Hmm.
plastic. But if you like start using a stainless steel pan or whatever, you remove the plastic cutting board, then it's just there's literally no effort to just replace it.
Yeah.
Um,
Same. Well, and also one other thing about the kitchen is those like black utensils are apparently made from like
mm,
old electronics.
okay. Wow.
And so you're like heating them up.
Yeah.
I mean, awful. So I use like just stainless steel
Mm,
utensils. Some from time to time a wood utensil. You have to be careful you don't
yeah.
get like mold or something in the
Mm,
wood. But yeah, just optimizing as you can. Like, don't be overwhelmed. But I've tried to make like my home environment as optimal as possible, so I don't have to think about it.
yeah. What do you think about the total plasma exchange from a longevity perspective, not
Mhm.
just the detox? Do you think it has any like longevity potential or benefits?
Yeah, one other thing to mention too is air filtration
Mm,
because we actually breathe more than we do anything.
yeah.
So the air inside of homes is typically, about I think 8 to 10 times worse than the air outside.
Hmm.
So that I think is another big lever that you can pull is really filtering your
Filtering.
air and getting those microplastics out of the air and any
Mm,
other contaminants because that was the issue with the LA situation. And so when you breathe things in, it bypasses your detoxification systems and you
hmm.
have all these like capillaries and blood vessels in your lungs. So breathing something in is actually like one of the worst ways
Yeah.
to be exposed to it because it gets a massive dose right into the
Yeah.
bloodstream.
One of the ways they get to the brain is through the olfactory bulb.
Hmm.
So it's like this soft tissue, so they just merge through it
Yeah,
into the brain.
exactly.
So
Like I'll show you when we go back upstairs. I have like a Jasper in every single room, which is like way too much technically, but
mhm.
like the air quality even throughout the fires. I have little testers all throughout the house of the air quality, and it remained good throughout the whole fire. So,
Right.
so TPE for longevity. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a massive benefit for longevity. So it was originally used, from what I understand, for people with very serious autoimmune cases. So it would actually remove some of those antibodies. So let's say you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis,
Hmm.
you would have these antibodies that are attacking your thyroid. So it can remove those from the plasma and lower the impact and the damage on your body. It also was used during COVID, apparently, for people experiencing these cytokine storms to really
Mm.
reduce that. So I think, yes, for longevity, probably though, the benefit is primarily coming from the reduction in things like microplastics, heavy metals,
Mm.
molds, and mycotoxins. Um, that would be my first line of thought. What about you? Do you think any other longevity
I
benefits?
mean, yeah, like with age, you'll have just more inflammatory molecules, old
Hmm.
proteins, just
Yeah.
junk material in the blood. And there's these studies with this blood exchange between like old mice, young
Hmm.
mice, etc. And apparently, the old mice do get healthier from the blood of the young mice. uh, so if you just take out the old blood and filter it,
Hmm.
and you have a little bit younger blood, then it might have some systemic effects. Yeah, at least theoretically. So I'm just very interested in like what it's gonna turn out to be in the next few years. If we will have some studies on it, but theoretically, yeah, just removing just yeah, like the toxins and the junk material, then
Hmm.
you'll just have like just better health, if not longer life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in general, yeah, like becoming worse at fighting off all things,
Mm.
right? So just yeah, like an infusion. In those studies, I can't remember how did they track how long the benefit lasted with the old and the new mice, the old and the
I
young
don't
mice.
remember exactly, but I think they were attached together
Yeah, yeah.
like continuously. So
Okay.
like I think it lasted on because if you detach them, then the effect is gonna wear off eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that is interesting. I have not gotten
mm.
any infusions of any new blood. I've not tried that.
Yeah. Um, what about HBOT?
Yeah, I mean, so I definitely need to do exact biomarkers because I've been doing HBOT actually for a very long time, like intermittently.
Mhm.
I just this year really did like the big protocol. So my HBOT doctor, do you know Dr. Scott?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Scott
he's
Shearer.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I have a one base, and so he's helped me put together my protocols. And so I have loved it from a cognition standpoint. I mean, my AMH, I wish I had an AMH before I ever started HBOT, but I unfortunately don't. I've definitely feel a lot of good benefits. My health is good, but unfortunately, I don't have. I wish I had like biomarkers right before and then after. But from what he is showing, actually, HBOT is a great way to improve sperm quality.
Mm.
That's been proven in the literature. It's really great for brain health. We know that for sure. Any concussions, or any TBIs, really helpful for healing and repairing brain. Also, things like ED or erectile dysfunction because of the improvements in blood vessels
Mm.
and vascularity and the ability to kind of like revascularize, which is incredible. The stress reduction, I saw that direct impact. So, really being able to put into a parasympathetic state. Let me think about some. They're doing studies right now on fertility in HBOT, which I'm excited to see what
Mm.
those yield. They're doing studies on AMH, that anti-Müllerian hormone, or the ovarian reserves. Because women these days are experiencing diminished early ovarian reserves, like more so it seems than in the past. And I think a lot of it has to do with environmental toxins and just lifestyle. But yeah, HBOT has been great for me so far. Also, I mean, telomeres, they say that they lengthen telomeres. My telomere age, I got a new test yesterday. It's 23. So, I mean, things are going well in that regard. But yeah, and the next one that I do, so the way that Dr. Scott framed it for me was that I should do body protocol. So that's 40 sessions, 1 hour per day, 5 times per week until you hit the 40 sessions at 2.0 ATA.
Mhm.
Then you take a break and do maintenance. You can do like 1 to 2 sessions per week if you want, just any maintenance. And then you do brain protocol, which is 1.5 ATA, so dropping down the pressure, and then repeating those 1 time per or 1 hour per day, 5 times per week, 40 sessions. So I'm going to try that and
Okay.
see what happens. But yeah, the studies on telomeres are pretty good too. So
Mm.
I think it can definitely play a role in longevity. I mean, oxygenation of the tissue and the body and improving, blood flow are all
Mm.
incredible benefits and really go to like the bottom line of longevity, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah, it's. I also think it's very interesting. It's
Yeah.
not gonna be like some radical life extension, but again, like better, I guess, better blood markers that then correlate to a lower risk of some chronic diseases.
Yeah.
Mm. Supplements are like very popular. Like, do you take any supplements or even peptides?
I do. I've tried a lot of different stuff. I love them for all different indications. The way I think about supplements are I have like my non-negotiables, things like omegas. So there's interesting research on having an omega index over 8. So I
Hmm.
usually try to keep my omega index at about 10. This is a blood lab for anybody that's listening that will measure the amount of omegas in your body. So I do an omega 3. I like the Metagenics brand. I do vitamin D supplementation. I, like you, keep my vitamin D at about 70 to 80. I think that's an ideal range. There's a lot of research too linking vitamin D and fertility. So that's important for women to know. And then I have like things like magnesium. That's like in my non negotiable bucket, right?
Hmm.
And then I have things that are in my protocol bucket. So that will be whatever I'm working on. So right now, because of the fires, it's detox. So I have additional like sulforaphane, I have additional vitamin C. I'm doing binders. I'm on like a cell core protocol. I also am doing a prescription called the cholestyramine that we talked about
Mm.
earlier to help get rid of some of those environmental toxins. Um, and then I have my what I call like longevity stack. So that is a little bit of NMN, which I do NMN or NAD testing as
Hmm.
well, and it's wild. I mean, it's you need to do supplementation to keep your levels up at this at least in the environment I'm in right now. So I do a little bit of NMN. I do spermidine, I think is an interesting molecule. It kind of mimics autophagy. So I am trialing that. I try stuff all the time. It doesn't always
Mm.
necessarily stay.
Yeah.
I think methylene blue is a kind of interesting compound. I kind of go back and forth with prescriptions actually for some cognitive enhancement. I've also done methylene blue IV therapy and like
Mm.
stack that with red
Wow.
light. That's kind of powerful and I mean, really good mental clarity. Let me think what else I really enjoy. I mean, I think urolithin A is great, but you can also get it from food sources. So really thinking about improving mitochondria specifically in the ovaries and the oocytes for anyone that's like looking to get pregnant, I think can
Mm.
be really helpful. So I take the MitoPure urolithin A supplementation. And let me think what else I really am enjoying these days. From a peptide standpoint, I think that I've tried so many of them, and we also prescribe a lot of them. So, like anyone dealing with glycemic issues, I think MOTS-C is something
Mm.
to explore. I have tried CJC and apomorelin, so
Mm.
that can help with body composition. And anyone looking to like lose a little bit of fat, add a little bit of muscle. Actually, I haven't even talked about this, but this is kind of wild. Something that I did an N of one test. So I started trying a GLP-1 at a very
Mm.
small dosage. So I was doing 5 units.
Mhm.
I only did it for about a month and I wasn't doing it for the weight loss benefits, but supposedly it can be really good for like longevity, metabolic health. But what's crazy is what happened to my leptin when I got off of it. So my leptin is so high right now, just from a month of that tiny of a dose. So a normal dosage of this GLP-1 would, it depends on the provider, but like something like 50 units.
Mhm.
So I was taking 5, super low. Didn't even like have any really weight loss impact, but wild how my leptin right now is almost 50. It's that of like an obese person. So it's crazy to me the swing. I think that this is not talked about and I think it should
Mm.
be because if I didn't have as much discipline as I have because I'm like hungry all the time now. If
Mm.
I didn't have as much
Wow.
discipline, so if you think about it, imagine someone on a dosage. So I don't know where I land. I'm just having conversation about this about the GLP ones because it does seem to have of course weight loss benefits and then you get all these longevity benefits from losing weight. They also seem to have some independent benefits of longevity, but imagine trying to get off of it if I was on a high dose like a normal person would
Mm.
be. And then your leptin, so that's like increasing your hunger
Like a
hormones like
rebound.
crazy, just
Wow.
spikes massive. So
Yeah, that's like a rebound effect then.
major, but I
Yeah.
did not expect that with such a small dose for such a short period of time.
Mm. Yeah, you
So
would expect, yeah, like some people to regain some weight once they stop taking GLP-1s, and they'll, because the hunger comes back.
mhm.
But yeah, like the leptin is quite interesting. Or maybe that's the reason why they rebound then, the leptin increase.
Seems so. Yeah, but I'm
Yeah,
just curious, like, what would it be if I was on a
larger.
normal dose,
Mm.
right? Because
Yeah.
that almost makes me feel like it really is going to keep people on it forever.
Mm.
Like
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. Yeah,
once they go
but they
on.
do have, very crazy results with the weight loss.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, are you going to stay obese, or are you going to use it and lose the weight and get to normal weight? Even though you might take it for a longer period of time, you could be able to, stop it and then regain maybe 10% back, but it's still better than being 100%
Yeah.
of the initial weight. So
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure,
yeah.
like people that really need it, I mean, totally, I would do it. So I mean, GLP-1 is a peptide, so there's that. I have tried that, but as just mentioned, it was for a very short period of time. I'm trying to figure out how to like get the leptin back down to like normal levels quickly. But we'll see how long it takes. I'm gonna do a little video on that too. Other peptides that I think are interesting, there's like kisapeptin and PT141. Those are interesting for like sexual function for both men and women. Not really my thing. I don't really need that, but you know, if you're having issues, that could be something to consider. Yeah, so those
BPC,
are peptide. Which one?
BPC.
Oh, BPC. I love that. Yeah, actually, I'm taking oral BPC right now because it's great for gut health, and I'm optimizing the gut pre-baby. So I'm doing a prescription compounded oral BPC, and then I've done BPC, of course, injectables. Actually, I broke my finger on the door outside. It's like so heavy, and I healed it in like 2 weeks by injecting BPC right into the
All right.
fat pad of my hand, and it healed so fast. It was crazy.
Right.
Like, yeah. So
That's
I did
interesting.
that, and I did red light therapy on it for 15 minutes per day, and then I did PEMF on it, and it like was healed and back to normal within 2 weeks. So it's pretty
Yeah.
exciting. But that one's a great one, body protection compound. Great for people that have any injuries, like healing, just want to recover faster if you're really doing intense exercise. My husband takes CJC. That one is really, great for him in the gym. So yeah, I mean, I love peptides. I think it's exciting that we're getting access to these fun molecules. Although then they kind of like take them away sometimes, and then now they gave them back.
Right.
There was a whole thing with the FDA here in America, but now they gave them back, which is absolutely amazing.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't like the research. I'm not a huge fan of the research peptides though, because I'm concerned of like, what if they have contamination with something? So I would recommend people get them from their doctor, because your doctor can like prescribe you,
Yeah.
and then they're like compounded in an FDA-approved facility. And
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of peptides, that you never know what you get
yeah.
unless it's a quality source.
Which one have you tried? Is there any favorites you have?
I've used only oral BPC.
Okay, yeah.
And I mean, I use like copper peptide, but very like not always.
Yeah, then there's GHCKU. That's a good one, more like topically. You can do it in injectable form, but that, could be good for like skin.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are probably, I also like thymosin alpha. Those are for like immune system boost. So depending on, if you need like, if your sickness is going around, you want to do like a immune system boost, that's something to consider. And yeah, I think that's probably, I mean, I've dabbled, in a lot of them. But we've also seen like clinically, we've seen some really good results with some peptides that have been great. Like for women, as we age and sarcopenia, thinking about something like a CJC or a tassamoralin or something to like help add on a little bit of muscle mass, mainly CJC, to add on some muscle mass. Like I've seen that be pretty effective.
Yeah.
But in general, I think, with my exercise programming, I'm thinking a lot about like adding bone density, improving bone health, and adding on muscle as a woman. Like I just hit, like my grip strength is 100. I mean, I really don't know many women that have 100 grip strength, but like getting that muscle mass and thinking about strength is so important, because as we get older, when you hit perimenopause and menopause, you're precipitously going to lose bone density, and you're also going to lose muscle mass. And we know that like if you, women, if you fall and break a hip, I forgot the percentage, but it's an incredibly high percentage that you will not make it home from the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty risky for older people. And after menopause, the bone density goes pretty low.
I'm excited to see, like, I feel like the biggest game changer for women's longevity would actually be to delay menopause, because when you hit menopause, like your risk of everything increases, like everything, cardiovascular disease and dementia, all causes of mortality increase substantially. So it's amazing that it's 2025. I don't know if you know this, but the ovaries age at double the speed of every other organ.
Yeah.
And we basically have no idea why still, like in the research. So I'm doing some things that are kind of interesting. So thinking like first principles thinking. So as a woman goes through her like menstrual cycle, there's an entire inflammatory cascade that's happening, because you're building up this lining, then the lining is shedding, and then it's doing it again and again and again every month. So I'm trying to strategically use like HBOT and red light therapy to reduce that amount of inflammation.
Hmm.
Because like I actually did egg freezing because we want so many kids. If we only wanted one or two, we would just start having kids and it would be no
Right.
problem. But I want to have it just in case. But usually when a woman has this retrieval of the eggs, it takes like 2.5 weeks for the ovaries to go back to normal. My doctor almost fell off of her chair when I came in just 5 days after my retrieval. She's like, Kayla, I've never seen anything like this in all my days of doing this. Your ovaries are back to normal. Like, what did you do? And I did HBOT and, of course, like general healthy lifestyle. But I did red light therapy, like actually on the ovaries combined with HBOT. And it really was able to make a massive impact on that
Mm.
inflammation. So I'm just wondering, I'm like, if we can reduce the inflammation in the ovaries throughout this cycle, can we prolong the longevity of the ovaries? I'm also
Yeah.
doing, not taking it now because we're about to have babies, but I was doing rapamycin,
Mm.
which interesting, it's very controversial now, right? Because now some people are saying it can increase your biological age, but there's an interesting paper, it's not been yet peer reviewed, but rapamycin has been able to extend ovarian aging by 5 years
Mm.
in these new papers. So, taking it for that reason only for a woman could be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I've also seen that. And it's, yeah, like very interesting that women, one of the reasons why women might live longer than men a few years is because they, up until menopause, they have higher estrogen that
Estrogen, yeah.
has cardioprotective
Hmm.
effects. So they get like, 4 or 5 decades of time where their cardiovascular burden is somewhat lower compared to men,
Hmm.
which starts accumulating already much younger because they don't have that high estrogen levels. So yeah, like if you can extend that window, so we get menopause in your 60s, for example, then women would theoretically automatically add another 5-10 years to their lifespan just by doing that. So yeah, and it's kind of unfair that you have normal sex hormones and then after menopause it just drops off the cliff, whereas men,
Hmm.
you can have pretty high testosterone even when you're 80 years old,
Hmm.
but it does kind of trickle down slowly compared to women.
Yeah, and these hormones are beneficial for
Mm.
health, right? I mean, it's also wild, like the misinformation kind of around women's health. So my mom lives in Ohio. It's a very small town in, the US. And her doctor read the really old study. There was a study on the Women's Health Initiative, like
Hmm.
over 20 years ago. They used the wrong sort of like replacement therapy, and they started it way too late. I think they started it like 10 years after the onset of menopause. And this entire generation of these doctors were educated that hormone replacement therapy will cause cancer for
Right.
women. So my mom, even as of today in 2025, her doctors are telling her that she shouldn't be on hormone replacement therapy. Thank goodness she has me, right? And I literally have a clinic. I'm like, go to live and go get your hormone therapy, because otherwise, like, she would think that it's really bad for her. But I mean, just logically maintaining similar hormone levels and the benefits of estrogen and these other hormones, I mean, of
Yeah.
course it can be beneficial. So
Yeah.
bioidentical, the right kind, under the right like advisement of a provider. These things can be very like tricky to dial in the dose. So you want to work with someone really good. But it's just sad that we're still having like misinformation from that long ago harming women, like,
Yeah.
in 2025.
Yeah. um Before we start wrapping up, what are like some of like a few tests that you think are essential for preventive health? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
obviously blood panel. You can go as crazy with the blood panel as anyone wishes, but yeah, like besides the regular blood work, are there like any tests that you think are really good for preventive health and
Hmm.
longevity?
Well, I think it depends on what your family history is, because based on that, what your predisposition, like if you have a family history of cancer, you might want to look at something like a Grail test, right? And
Hmm.
a Prenuvo full body MRI to catch anything really early. Let's say you have, cardiovascular disease that runs in your family, and it's the number one cause of it's the number one killer anyway. Looking at like an advanced NMR panel, like, so not just HDL, LDL, triglycerides, but looking at, LP little a and ApoB. These more advanced cardiac panel markers are really important. I also, let me think what else I really love. I mean, those are the stroke and cardiovascular disease, top killers, cancer, diabetes. So, HbA1c, looking at your metabolic markers are really important, and your insulin markers, glucose. But if you can only just do a HbA1c, that one's fine too. And then those advanced cardiac panels, because that's going to kind of look out for stroke and cardiovascular issues. And maybe like have you heard of grill cancer pre-screening?
Yeah.
Liquid biopsies are becoming more popular. I'm going to do one every year, just like for the rest of my life, because cancers are getting younger and younger. It's insane. And then when you pair that with something like a full body MRI, you can catch anything really early. So I think it depends on what your personal predispositions are. Also genetics. You can take a look at your genetics and just see like, what are you predisposed to? Because if you have, like multiple copies of Alzheimer's gene, for example, you might really want to be putting brain health first. So that's why personalization is so important, right? But in general, I think everybody should be testing twice a year, a minimum, the most advanced panel that you can afford, right? Looking at essentially every organ system. How is your liver performing, your kidneys, your heart health, your brain health, just breaking those down and being as proactive as humanly possible. Because it's crazy in medicine, because it's like one day you don't have diabetes and the next day you do, but that's not really how it works. That was a buildup, and you could have seen that like 5 years ago on your labs. And then you could have aggressively worked to reverse it, right? And then you wouldn't have gotten the type 2 diabetes in the first place.
Yeah, actually I have like a family member who did get diagnosed with diabetes recently last year. And he never took a blood test for the last 10 years or never went to the doctor. So you don't know when did he actually get it, or like, because it's a slow process of over years.
But I had a family member that just, actually went to my clinic, and our provider said, hey, like you have prediabetes, right? And but that's amazing, because now guess what he can do? He can aggressively work to reverse that, and then he doesn't have to get diabetes. But in most medical establishments, Western medicine, they just will say, oh, you're fine, and then all of a sudden you get diabetes. Like the pre-diabetes is like not even mentioned,
Yeah, you're fine until you're not.
Yeah, exactly. So
well, yeah, it's been a great conversation. Before I ask my last question, where can people learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, my website is Kayla Barnes, KaylaBarnes.com. I'm also posting on Instagram under Kayla Barnes, and I recently started posting like long form, female specific longevity content on YouTube. So any of those places.
That's good. We'll put the links in the show notes. And my last question is, what's this one piece of advice or a habit that you wish you adopted sooner?
I would definitely say stress reduction. I really pushed myself super hard, and I allowed my stress to run at much higher levels than I probably should have for many years. I wanted to do all the things. I wanted to be perfect in all the areas. I wanted to be perfect at working out, running companies, building businesses, showing up for everybody. And I wish I would have thought about stress reduction intentionally earlier.
Yeah, it's important. Well, thanks for having me and record the podcast here, and thanks for having me on your podcast as well, so people check it out.
Well, of course, thank you for having me, and thank you for being on mine.
All right, that's it for this episode. Make sure you check out my new book, The Longevity Leap, on Amazon. I'd also appreciate if you share this episode with a friend or family member. Other than that, my name is Siim. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay empowered.